Time is 5:37. Today's date is January the 15th, 2018, and I call this public hearing, to order. Item number 2, establishment of quorum. Let the record reflect that we have a full quorum with this exception of Dr. Rivera. Before we move on, I want to add, or I want to say that I want to thank everybody here today involved with decorations, and it looks really nice in here, really, really very nice. And on behalf of the board, we thank you all. I know that the rest of the board would probably like to say a few words, but we'll keep it short to move on. But we do appreciate all the efforts and all the hard work from all the people involved on decorating today, and whatever other surprises are coming.
And there will be more during the official board meeting that begins at 6.
Yeah, thank you so much to get things going. Item number 3, public hearing on Texas Academic Performance Report, TAPR. Dr. Canales.
Board of Trustees and citizens and staff members in the audience, this is an annual public hearing where we have to report several items from TAPR. I'll be doing part of the presentation along with Mr. Aguilar, Mrs. Peterson, Mrs. Segura, Mr. De La Rosa, and Mr. Sanchez. So it involves several departments. So first of all, Weslaco ISD is a MET standard district, and that's the highest standard you can get. It's MET standard, so we met standard for 2017 accountability. On the next slide, you can see everything in green. There are 4 indices. Everything in green is improvements from the previous year. And every single one of our campuses also met the rating. We had an improvement required in 2016. That campus, Early College High School, is now met standard as well. So this is progress, it's good work from the staff, from our teachers, from our parents, our counselors, everybody, administrators, the collaboration.
Go to work.
What does the asterisk mean?
The asterisk means it's, we have the asterisk for Early College High School. We have it on the 20 and 2016 and the 2017 on the 40. So, will you click on the mic so that we can get it?
They're actually held to a different standard because they only have STAAR data. So our high schools, our traditional high schools, are held to a standard of 60. And the high schools that don't have all of the components like a traditional high school, this year will be the first year that Early College High School will have its first graduating class.
So we'll have
From what I
additional
believe.
components that include graduation rate, dropout, and some of the other indicators.
Okay.
And so they'll move to that 60 target.
Oh, so the asterisk
Well,
denotes the
We
change, the
think, because,
differentiation.
right, the target will change. We don't know what that is.
Okay, thank you for
Okay.
explaining that.
Yeah, since they have their senior cohort this year, for the first time, they'll graduate the first class.
That's wonderful.
Okay, good question. Okay, for district accreditation status, there are 4 different ratings, from accredited to non-accredited, revoked, and our district is accredited. Okay, now we move to elementary performance objectives. I'm going to pass this over to Mr. Aguilar, our leader of elementary education and leadership.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, board members. Again, thank you for your service and all that you do with your support, for our district, for our boys and girls, and for all the employees of Weslaco ISD. Thank you so much. We have our campus performance objectives for the elementary schools, and as you can see here on their improvement plans, this is basically a 10% growth improvement that they're projecting. So what we have here is what they have in their campus improvement plan as they move forward. And this was previously approved through the board members back in November.
It's part of the campus improvement plans.
Part
or
of the campus improvement plan.
SAIPs.
And this is the same information for our middle schools, the performance objectives for each content area, and then for our high school campuses.
It also is a 10% increase from the previous
10%
year.
increase over what they had last year, yes. And we are aiming for much higher than that, but that's the minimum expectation.
Well, as we continue, what you have here in front of you is the 2017 STAAR summary year-over-year performance, and this is for the elementaries for third, fourth, and fifth grade reading. And as you can see, this was previous information that you've already received, but we want to give you a comparison. If you see in 2016 for third grade and 2017, there was a 2-point increase with our reading in third grade. If we jump over to fourth grade, we did take a 2% drop, but you can also see there was a drop at the state and the region as well in 2017. If we move over to fifth grade, we had a 5-point increase with our fifth grade reading compared to the previous year. So we're going to jump over to the next slide, and we have our elementary, third, fourth, and fifth grade math. If we're looking, if we're looking at our comparisons for 2016 and 2017, we had a 1-point gain compared to 2016 in third grade. We had a 4-point gain in fourth grade math compared to 2016. And in fifth grade, we stayed the same at 89%. With writing and science for the year-over-year performance, we had in 2016 to 2017, there was a slight drop across the state and the region, as you can see. And we also, here at in Weslaco ISD, we did stay the same from the previous year, even though there was a drop at the region, at the state level. If we look at science, there was a significant increase with 6 points from the previous year.
And science is ahead of the state and the region in 2017, fifth grade.
Good. Good job on that.
This is the same information for our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade reading. And we know that reading language arts is an area we are paying a lot of attention to. We were able to maintain in 8th grade where the state and the region took a slight drop. We had a 10-point gain in 7th grade, which we were very pleased with and came in above the region, slightly ahead of the region in 7th grade. So we're continuing to work very much on our secondary reading. And of course, we have a new strategist who's supporting that work. In math at the middle schools, we had gains everywhere and came in ahead of the region and the state in 8th grade and in 7th grade. And we know we are working very hard with our 6th grade. For writing, science, and social studies, again, at the middle schools, we had a jump in writing in 7th grade from 62 to 70, a jump in science from 69 to 75, coming in ahead of the region, and a jump in social studies of 10 points, and again coming ahead of the region and tied with the state at 8th grade social studies. On the English 1, 2, and Algebra 1, we know we continue to struggle with English 1 and English 2, although in English 2 we did have an 8-point gain from 53 to 61, which brought us even with the region. And in Algebra 1, we had a 4-point gain from 77 to 81, and we are hoping and working for continual gains here. And in science, we had a 2-point jump for the biology. We had a drop in U.S. history, although our benchmark scores for U.S. history this year are showing a significant gain here, and we have changed the course sequence at the high schools, and we'll be testing majority juniors this year, which is what the state tests. We had tested majority sophomores. This data is majority sophomore data. So we expect a significant jump there.
What was the change in the course sequence?
Back in the day, it was world geography, world history, U.S. history, and then government and econ. But the state, when they changed requirements, knocked it back to 3 years of social studies. So we were going world history, U.S. history, government, and eco in the junior year. And then senior year was room for electives for AP or whatever the student wanted to take. So now what we're doing is world history special topics in the sophomore year for students who do not pass an English 1 end of course exam their freshman year. And the special topics is a focus on the U.S. history content. So they're really getting additional U.S. history content and then moving into U.S. history their junior year. Now for students who pass the English 1 their freshman year and are on track, we put them right in U.S. history their sophomore year.
Okay.
And so they still have room for electives. But the state only requires 3 years of social studies now.
Oh, I know that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, the next slides that we have the 2017 STAAR percent at approaches grade level or above all subjects. So what we're comparing here is 2016 and 2017 for Weslaco ISD with all students and all our subpopulations. I do want to point out that there's 3 levels that the state looks at. They look at the approaches, they look at meets, and they look at masters. And each one gradually improves in performance rating for the students. The one that you're looking at right now in front of you is approaches, and these are the students that perform at this level. They have met the minimum requirements for passing at the approaches, and these are the ones that might need some intervention moving forward because they're meeting the minimum passing standard. So at the bottom, you see the growth from 2016 to 2017. So we have improved in growth, with exception of slightly with our white population. There was a slight decrease there. If we move to the next slide, this is our meets level. Our meet students at this level meet the assessment requirements for passing. However, these students are performing more at a post-secondary level of readiness. Their likelihood of success is much higher. They're much more prepared. So you see the comparisons there with all our students and all our subpopulations. Then we jump into the 2017 STAAR percent at the master's grade level or above of all subjects. At the master's level, these are the students at this level that are expected to succeed. There is no academic intervention required. They're already working at a high advanced level, college readiness level, and this is the data that the state looks at for our distinctions that we earn at our campuses and at the district level. This is a measurement that they look at. Then we move into our attendance rate. So you see our comparison from 2014 to 2015 and 2015 to 2016. I do want to point out that our elementaries need to meet a 97%, our middle schools a 96%, and our high schools are expected to hit a 95%. Those are our target goals. Now, this is our percentage growth from Weslaco ISD, the region, and the state. And as you can see, we are above, we have met those goals, and we have increased them, as you can see with the comparison. Now, it's also important to keep in mind that some of these percentages may vary depending on the 40 comparison group that each campus is under, because they come out with an average of that attendance rate. For example, if you have an elementary campus that it is compared to 39 other campuses of similar demographics, and their average comes out at about 97.2. The target score is 97, but it's going to vary based on that comparison group. So we always try to aim higher on that attendance and try to meet those goals so we can attain those standards, especially for distinctions as we move forward.
Now we go into a significant amount of high school only data. So this is our dropout rate, which is all students in grades 9 through 12 who do not return the following year. And we're looking at a comparison from the years 2014-15 to 15-16, because there is a delay on this data. We went up slightly. That could be as few as one student. We have a whole team of people that work on this year-round. In the fall, we're very busy with big teams of district staff looking for students and bringing them back, but all year counselors, campus administrators, and of course our teachers are working on this to make sure our students stay in school. This is graduation rate, and you can see that the 4-year rate would be for the class of 2015, the 5-year rate, the class of 2014, and the 6-year rate, the class of 2013. The state tracks our students who return. So for a 4-year rate for all students, we're at 90.8. We know that we have to work with our special ed and our ELL students extra hard to get them to graduate on time. Then our students who return for that 5th year are graduating overall at a 91.7, and the students who have to come back for a 6th year are graduating at a 91.7. And again, there is delay in this data, constantly being monitored and watched. This is the percentage students in the class of 2016 and 2015 who graduated on the recommended high school plan or the distinguished plan. We did have a drop in that, which is watched by our counselors as students near graduation. Sometimes they have to drop a plan because they didn't pass a specific course. Our goal is that all of our students graduate recommended or higher. The class of 2017 was the last class to graduate under recommended high school or distinguished. This year's class will graduate on the foundations and foundations with endorsements plans. These are the percentage of students at our high schools that are graduating college ready. If you're graduating college ready, you have met or exceeded a minimum score on the TSI, the ACT, or the SAT. And we have 9.1% of our students who are graduating college ready. And then we have 87.3% of our students who are graduating with a coherent course case. I can never say this one. Coherent CATE course sequence. And you can see we're significantly above the state with our CATE sequence. We have a fantastic CATE program, and our students take advantage of that. So we're very proud of that. These are other college readiness indicators that go to our high schools. The first is AP and dual credit course completion. You can see we are running a little behind the region and the state, but we did have an increase over 2015, and we're working, of course, to have more students enrolled in dual or AP. The second table there in the middle is only AP, and that's a student who took any AP class in any subject throughout the school year. And again, we had a little drop there. We are always working to try to increase those numbers. And then the last table is the percent of students who scored at or above the criterion in an AP exam, and that would be a 3 or better on one test. And you can see we did have a significant increase there and are running above the region there. And we get the AP data every spring to analyze. This is more on some of the same things. We've got SAT, ACT, the percent of students who tested one of those tests. We did have a drop in the percent of students testing one or the other. At the high schools, we work hard to make sure all of our students are taking the test that best fits their needs for their future plans. So SDC doesn't require an ACT, it requires a TSI. So we work on the TSI, which is not indicated here, but we also want more students testing ACT. Students testing at or above the criterion is the second table there. You can see we did have an increase there of students testing at or above the criterion on the ACT or the SAT. The average SAT score is there. We had a 2-point drop, but we run significantly ahead of the region. On the SAT, well, ACT, we're really right there with the region, and we stayed the same. We do offer some test prep online, and we're looking into partnering with Sylvan to offer some more test prep. The first table here is the percent of students that graduated in those graduation years 14 and 15 who enrolled in a state school or a private school in Texas. That first table does not track any student that enrolled outside of the state of Texas. So in the class of 2015, 55.7% of our students enrolled in college the year following high school graduation, the fall following. And then the next one is if they completed 1 year without any remediation required. That is only in a state school. That doesn't reflect anything from a private school, state schools only. And we did have a drop there, and of course our goal is that our students go in prepared, not needing any remediation, so that's a number we need to work at. And then we also received this data. It shows the graduates and what they have been able to track. Now, if a student ID doesn't track or there are some other issues, they go into that not trackable or not found. But if they went and enrolled in a 4-year public or 2-year public college, and again, public, not private, we can track their GPA. So this is good data for the high schools to see how well we're preparing our students for college and where we need to do better. And moving on to Mr. De La Rosa for discipline.
Good afternoon. This is a short report on the 2016-2017 report on violent and criminal incidents. According to the No Child Left Behind Act, the following disciplinary action reasons codes, we do have to report on these to identify if our district or any campuses are labeled as persistently dangerous schools. In order to be identified as a persistently dangerous school, one of these disciplinary codes, if the percentage of the population is over 200, then approximately 1% of the population must be identified, or the number of incidents must be equal to or above the number of incidents ranking in these codes. So for example, for a campus of 4,000 students, 1% would be about 40 students consecutively over the previous 3 years. So we did have one incident at Weslaco High School that was reported, and one incident at B. Garza Middle School that was reported, so we are very safe. And then some of the other school prevention and instruction policies that we adhere to here at Weslaco ISD, these are some of the things that we do to help ensure the safety of students. I mentioned a couple of them: drug prevention students, DAEP program, parental involvement activities, and of course safety and security, officers and surveillance system as well. And that is that part of the report, if anybody has any questions on that.
So according to your, what you told us about the persistently dangerous schools, none of our schools met that standard?
Not even close, sir.
That's good.
Okay, the next section, we have Mrs. Segura. This is staff information.
Good evening, Dr. Canales, members of the board. Now on to the fun stuff. I will be reporting the PEAMS staffing information that was reported for the 2016-2017 school year. Weslaco ISD reported a total of 2,423 employees, of which 59.2% were reported in the category of professional staff. 59.2%, of course, is over the region percentage, but still below the state average. Excuse me. Moving on to the next category, teachers. The district is at 47.1, which is above the region, but yet still below the state.
What do these percentages mean? Is that the percentage of our staff who are teachers?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and so based on the staffing ratio recommendations, it shows that we're where we should be for a district our size. And so basically, that's why we kind of compare to the region and the state.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on to professional support, the district is at 10.4%, which is above the region and also above the state. The next category, campus administration, the district is at 0.9%, which is below both the region and the state. And I do want to kind of make a comment there. Good evening, Dr. De Vera. This is actually the question that Dr. De Vera had last year, so you're just in time, sir.
Oh, okay.
Last year, Dr. De Vera had questioned the percentage. Why was it so low? And we had kind of informed the board that our administrators were classified as instructional facilitators and not necessarily assistant principals, as most of the other districts in the state. Dr. De Vera had also asked us to look into what the reporting was for other districts. And so we listened, we took suggestions, and we worked on phase one of reclassifying some of those administrators. Now, keep in mind, this is still last year's data, so the changes are not going to reflect until next year. But as part of the phase one, we did reallocate 6 SIFs, one at each high school and one at each middle school. And so for next year's reporting, they will be classified under assistant principals and not facilitators. And so that's going to decrease the percentage, the 10.4, because currently they're under professional support. So then we will be aligned with the region and the state. And then it's going to bump up the 0.9% in campus administration, because they will be reported as assistant principals. And so that's not going to necessarily take us to the 2.9 or 2.4, but it's going to be an increase until we, consider working on the other SIFs, okay? And then moving on to central administration, the district reported 0.8%, which is below the region and the state. And once again, we heard your concerns. You did mention that we were working understaffed, and this year we did budget for 3 additional central office staff members, which is fine arts, GT, and then we just hired our additional strategist for English language arts. So with the addition of those 3 central office staff members, that will bump up that percentage next year. So we'll be more aligned with the state and the region. So all 3 categories that were of concern last year, we have attempted to correct those, and so we should see those percentages increase next year. Okay? For educational aids as well, the district is at 8.8%, which is below the region and the state. I must let you know that last year we were at 7.7. I think once again, the concern was to make sure that our campuses have the staff that they need. So we went ahead and looked at the special funding sources for those and made sure that they had the vacancies filled. So that was an increase from last year, 7.7 to now 8.8. And we should also see that increase next year as well. Auxiliary staff is at 32.1%, which is below the region but above the state. Last year we were at 33.1, and we didn't fill a couple of positions because we had recognized that we were over both the region and the state, and therefore you see a slight decrease, which kind of brought us comparable to the region.
Before you move on, Dr. Canales, could you give us a better explanation on an update on the campus administration on the .9? As to where you think we're gonna be when it comes, with
The 6 change.
with this
Okay.
movement of the,
We can work with technology with the new data that we have on the staffing and see where that'll place us next year.
And so the request is to provide it in a board update?
yes.
We can
Yes.
do that.
Okay, moving on to the next slide, which is teachers by years of experience. Weslaco ISD reported 1.4% for 0 experienced new teachers, which is below the state and the region. Last year, we had a 6.8%, and we had explained to the board that that was due to the opening of the ELF Academy, where we kind of targeted new teachers. And so that was a decrease. This year, I think we only hired, for last year, we only hired 12 new teachers with 0 years experience. And so that's why we see the decrease in the percentage there. Under the 1.5 years experience, WISD reported 16.1%, which is below the state and the region. The next category, 6 through 10, we reported 18.9, which is below the state and the region. And then where we do see the increase is at the 11 through 20 years. WISD reported 38.1%, which is above both the state and the region. And so what the, what the data tells us or shows us is that WISD continues to have a low turnover rate. And, we've explained that that is due to your generosity for being very competitive in pay raises and pay scales. The data continues to show that once employees come to Weslaco, they stay in Weslaco. And we thank you for that. We know that you're given the hard task, even with budget cuts, enrollment decreases, you still find a way to compensate all of our educators and show your appreciation for their hard work. So on behalf of the staff, I really appreciate it, and I thank you for making those tough decisions, but I know that the staff really does appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Moving on to the next category, over 20 years experience, the district is at 25.5%, which is above the state and the region. Okay. Last year, we were at 24.0%, so there was an increase there as well. And so it shows that we build capacity and they stay here. Okay, the next slide. I'm not going to go through each of these. Basically, it's the same as we reported last year. Weslaco ISD, as I mentioned, because of your generosity, we're the highest paid in our region and most of the state, with the exception of Laredo, United, and some of the Houston districts over there. But it still shows that we're a good district to be at. We get rewarded for the hard work, and as the data shows, that once they come, they stay. The next slide is new information that was not reported or not required for us to report to you last year, but we felt it was important to let you know that the experience of campus administration, and this kind of supports some of the data on the first slide. The average years of experience of Weslaco ISD principals is 24.5%, which is above both the region and the state. The average years of experience of principals with district experience is 22.0, which is also above the the state and the region. Average years experience of assistant principals, if you can note on there, we're at 0. As I explained, in 16-17, we had no assistant principals. They were classified as instructional facilitators. So we will see this change next year. And then the same as the last average year's experience of assistant principals with district, we also have 0. But we should see this change next year. Any questions? Thank you.
I've got a few questions. I was here late, but on your STAAR scores, on page 10, on writing and science, maybe you already covered this on page 10, but in both writing and science, we're below the state and the region. Yes, science, yes, you're above. Right. And in the middle schools, on page 12, it looks also like in grade 6, we're below the region and the state. I guess what concerns me the most would be the high schools. On page 14, your English 1, this is the end of course. Your English 1, your English 2, and your algebra. In the algebra, you're higher, but I guess the English 1, English 2 were lower than the state and the region. But more alarming is on page 15, where biology and U.S. history were below the state and below the region. No, this is last year, but again, the goal for this year would be for us to go ahead and come up higher. We certainly want to be above the region, especially in biology and U.S. history. Just an observation.
We did address it as we were going through it. We've changed our sequence for social studies, Dr. Rivera. We had, last year, this reflects mostly sophomores testing because we had moved our sophomores to U.S. history their sophomore year when the state changed the requirements for social studies to 3 years. Now we've reversed that. So now students take world history their freshman year, special topics their sophomore year, which is a focus on U.S. history, and then U.S. history their junior year. So this year we will be testing mostly juniors in U.S. history, and our benchmark scores are already showing significant gains.
Okay, good. In biology, again, we're low on this one compared to the state.
Right, we did have a
the
gain.
region?
We're still running slightly behind,
Below?
1 point behind the region and the state. We did have a gain, and we hope to see an additional gain this year.
Okay, thanks.
In reference, good afternoon, Dr. Rivera. In reference to the fourth grade writing, we're currently monitoring that very closely through our CBAs and our benchmarks. We're making adjustments through our assessments as we go through. Plans of actions, principals are meeting with all their teachers. We're following through with additional staff development here at the district level. We're identifying our areas of need, and we have a plan of action moving forward. So we are monitoring it closely as we move forward.
Okay, good.
Thank you, sir.
And for it is our last section. We have Mr. Sanchez.
Dr. Canales, Mr. Lopez, members of the board. I'm going to cover the financial information and opinion for the fiscal year 2015-2016. And I'd like to say that on the tax rate, we talked about all the time that we have one of the lowest tax rates. And this report shows the total rate for the state is the average $1.28, the region 126.5, and the district 114, very low. And also the property values, which is the bottom line there on the first table, is $404,000. The property value per student, per pupil at the state level 165,000 at the region average, and 113 for the district. On the revenues, on local taxes, at the state level, the schools raise 45% from local taxes because the districts up north, as shown on the top, they have a higher property value, so they raise more taxes. They get 45%. The region districts raise about 17% for local taxes, and we raise only 12%. And state revenues, the state generates only about 41%. The region school districts, 65%, and Weslaco, 71%. We have a lot more state revenues than they do. And on the federal revenues, the state average is 10%, the region districts 15.68%, and the district almost 16%. The expenditures, the instructional expenditures, which covers functions 11 and 95, which are instructional, 12 instructional resources, media, the library, 13 staff development, and counselors, function 31. The state average is 16.6%, the region district 61.4%, and we are at 63.2%. So we spend almost the same as the state. Last year we spent 63.9%, we went down 0.7%. And on debt service, the state average of debt service is 11.2% of the general fund expenditures. The region district 6.6%, and the district is 4.1%. We owe less than most everybody else. Any questions on this brief part?
Andres,
Yes, sir.
we collect more money from the state and the federal government
Yes,
because,
ADA, the biggest portion is ADA. And we also get, through the property taxes we collect, we get a portion from the state also.
okay.
Because districts that get more money from the state, more money from taxes get less from the state. So we get a lot less from property taxes, so we get more from the state.
So Andres, you said that we're still the lowest rate in the valley?
Pretty
Our
much
tax
on the
rate?
lowest in the valley, yes, sir.
Okay.
But just the averages, our rate versus the average of the region is a lot lower.
Correct, okay.
On your INS,
Yes, sir?
since we have zero, and it's been there for a long, long time,
Yes, sir.
how much money do you have to put back to be able to pay your debt?
This last year, we transferred 1.7.
1.7 million?
Yes, we had expected to transfer with the increase in 2 pennies, only 3.9 at the end, for this year, instead of the 4.9 that we had to pay on the debt, because we're going to collect about $1 million more because of the 2 cents on INS. But last year, at the end of last year, we had a lot of money left because we had received extra money from TA. So we had a fund balance at the end of the year of 3 million plus. So we only transferred 1.7.
Let's be studying this in the future to see what an increase would be there from zero. I mean, that was zero when I was here, so the intent was never to leave it at zero.
Right.
So kind of be studying different options to give to
Okay.
the board here in the summer,
Sure?
about a possible increase to
I will.
INS.
Yeah, I will. Any other questions?
And Dr. Canales, you mentioned that our teacher salary was up there with the whole region, correct?
Yes.
Even though we have the lowest tax rate, but we still have
We
one
pay-
of the highest salaries
pay
for
better.
teachers or staff members.
Yes, even at the state average.
Yeah, where the average for the teacher salaries, looks like across the board is higher than the region and the state average.
And as long as we continue to improve our scores like we have, I think we're headed in the right direction.
Good observation.
I guess now it's time for the public. If anybody has questions from the public on anything, on the presentation, another time to come up.
That's the
and
next
ask.
item.
Yes, public comments.
That's item number 4 on the agenda is public comments on the Texas Academic Performance Report, TAPR. And that's, it gives the audience an opportunity to ask questions or concerns or to make comments on the report that was just presented. So if anybody in the public wants to come up and speak, now is the time, and you have your opportunity to say some words on this report. Dr. Canales and staff, I just want to thank you all for all this information. It must take a lot of work to compile all this information and put it together and bring it for us. I know that it's very valuable. It's a very valuable tool moving forward with our students and And Dr. Rivera, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've had this presented to us in this way in the past?
Correct.
You know, so, thank you so much, and staff for presenting to us. Abel and Ms. Peterson, thank you so much. Good job, and everybody that came up here. Melba.
And Ms. Claudia Lanise kind of spearheaded getting all the information.
That-
and-
that
and
this
with
is,
Mr. Flores, Rick Flores.
I can see where this would
Support
come in
staff.
very, very valuable in moving forward with our district, and I know that's where we're headed. So, thank you so much.
And Mr. Real has too. Yes, and just for the public, the complete TAPER report will be available at our websites, the district and the campus websites. And TAPER reports, if you need a hard copy, will be available by request by campuses and departments.
And we all know that there's room for improvement, and improvement is coming, so we can hardly wait for the next, when's the next report coming out?
Next year.
Next year, sir.
All the way to the next year? There's no, well, y'all do benchmarks and all this kind of stuff,
We
so.
can provide some,
Only 12
Yes,
more
sir, we
months.
can, whatever reports you need, we can provide them for you. That won't be a problem.
and we won't make it up.
We like good news.
Yes, sir.
Anybody want to come up? All right. Dr. Rivera, any more comments?
No.
Anybody? Okay. That being so, we'll move on to item number 5, which is adjournment. This public hearing is closed. Thank you so much for all that are here.